Welcome to a Stepping Stones interview. I'm Caroline Stevens. Today I'm on location in Derby with Gordon Bowden. Gordon is going to explain about the evidence he's collated regarding alleged fraud and corruption within their Houses of Parliament. Welcome. I'm Caroline Stevens. I'm a presenter and I like to uncover corruption stories. Today I'm in Derby. I'm with Gordon Bowden. Gordon, you probably know, he has uncovered many crimes against politicians, really, who are based in Finchley Road, or at least their shell companies are at Finchley Road. Nobody seems to be coming to trial as yet, and these videos are we're hoping to make a change and put crime at the top of our agenda for the judges to judge upon. So, here I am in Derby with Gordon Bowden. Thank you, Gordon.
It's a pleasure, Caroline.
Accommodating me today.
It's a pleasure.
So, we're talking, you're from Wales, aren't you?
Yes, I was born in Newport and grew up in Cumbran, Valley of the Crows.
And you're living in England?
Yes, and when I came back, I found out I actually come from Bideford in Devon, so that was a bit of a downer.
So, we've been looking at Finchley Road shell companies.
Yes.
We've been talking about Peter Hain, who has made the headlines in recent days.
He has.
Because he is whiter than white, is he not?
Well, he used his parliamentary privilege to expose Philip Green for his nefarious activities. My point is that nobody looked at Peter Hain and his previous employment with Amara Mining. With my expertise within the mining industry for goldfields of South Africa and uncovering fake oil, gas and mining companies, I looked very deeply at Peter Hain's involvement with Amara Mining, which when I looked at the company house information, it was actually a cliff, an algae cliff, cash-gutted shell. So what they did was they reinvented it with another exotic name, Amara Mining, enable them to float shares to start the company all over again.
So this is a limited company, originally, where it has no value, effectively.
Well, because it was debt facilitated company. It was running on revolving debt from Algae Cliff and all the Cliff subsidiaries. And so from understanding how you can steal billions by using companies that are debt facilitated companies, I'll give you an example. If I start a parental company and I have a subsidiary company in South America, maybe Argentina, where Andrea Davison's working, maybe part-time, I don't know. So I have a subsidiary company in Argentina. The main company is coming out of, say, 6 St. James's Place, St. James's Square. And I want to expand the resources of my company. What I will do is loan the subsidiary company 10 million quid.
Right.
So that they can start buying licenses and exploring and finding and drilling until that 10 million's gone. And then they ask for some more because they have intersected high reef bearing rock and they want another 10 million. So the parental company floats more shares, which devalues the original shareholders' money investment, and so it goes on. But that's what you call asset stripping, and that's where the company directors conspire to steal the cash and devalue the share value for the investors. And gradually you will see a spike when they find these exotic minerals, gold, silver, diamonds. It doesn't matter what. It's nothing to do with that. This is about stealing money. So you will get a spike on the share price. The directors who have free optional shares sell their shares on the spike.
Right.
And then nobody hears anything for months. And then it does what they call the dive of death and falls down. So all the shareholders who weren't given the go to sell, they end up losing their money. And I'm talking about thousands of companies, not just one or two. And that's where my library exists. It's understanding and finding out the common directors of all those companies who have all talked about finding it, called Jam Tomorrow companies, on the penny stock share. Never find it, and then do what they call revolving debt facility. So they can run a company like Wolf Minerals down in Devon, and they cancel out the debt of 65 million, then float shares to the value of 60 million, and then lose it. Good, eh? 120 odd million. It's a joke.
I'm so glad you explained that, because we've been talking about shell companies for quite a while, but we've never had that simple explanation.
Well, to me it's simple. I've been doing it a long time, but to the average person in the street,
right.
they're not going to understand how easy it is to steal billions of pounds.
So with the Panama Papers, because I remember we had the Panama Papers, and then we had some very notable politicians, and we also had some notable businessmen who were involved in the Leave side of the Brexit campaign.
What about the Beckhams?
Oh.
What about our friend the Beckhams? You might remember that the major media came across a company called Ingenious Film Partners, which was a film generated investment for top people like Sir Alex Ferguson. Oh, football, there's another thing for football. And what they would do was be enticed into investing in these film companies that would do the major blockbusters, and then get a return on that without declaring it in a tax return. Do you understand? It's very, but the company that initiated this, when you check, there's not just one company, there's hundreds of film companies. And that's what I exposed via Ingenious Film Partners LLP and 2 LLP, which is Limited Liability Partnership.
Wow.
And what I saw very easily was when you did the money trail of those companies and the directors of those Ingenious Film Partners, it all ended up back to certain addresses in Finchley. And that would be 788, 790 Finchley Road, which has been abandoned now for quite a long time. They've done a runner.
But I thought that we had rules in place to prevent this from happening.
Well, it depends who you are and if you lift your right trouser leg and shake hands dodgily. And that's what it's about. To me...
Being a part of a club.
Yeah, we're not in it. Well, I'm not. I've been threatened by them, but they bashed on the door here a few times, but I'm a bit too old and long in the tooth to be worried about people like that. They can, as I said, I'm covered in as much as with regard to the mining companies. Going back to Peter Hain and Amara Mining, he came out of a certain address which was 6 St James's Place, St James's Square, and from there was the company that involved the people who stole my lovely lady's money, and that company was Metarex Limited. Its subsidiaries were Copper Resources Corporation and another one called Pan African Resources, which brought in a certain gentleman, Malcolm Alec Byrne, who was found to be a director of Anglesey Mining. So when I started looking at Anglesey Mining, that's when I came across all the common directors were linked even to the nuclear industry, and that's Dr. Hugh Morris, and that's where my suspicions started, by looking at it as a nuclear waste repository. And my mining experience was quite clear that this was a 300-metre vertical shaft in hard rock, zinc, copper, tin.
Actually, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
So we were talking about repositories.
Yes.
And this is where the nuclear waste is stored
I am
underground?
100% convinced that when I looked at the formation and the sinking of the Morris shaft, and I'd found out that the past director was Dr. Hugh Morris of the Nuclear Association, that I started to look at the design, not just with Malcolm Alec Byrne being a director and his involvement with the same people who stole my partner's money and 800 other victims. I looked at it purely with my mining experience. And that's where I found that 280 metres there was an offshoot gallery.
Now, offshoot gallery to
yeah, so it's a down vertical shaft, 300 metres, and at 280 metres there were an offshoot gallery with intersecting offshoots.
And you would expect a second.
And I would expect, as a mining experience, as a tertiary shaft for evacuating your workers should there be an accident in the main shaft.
Yeah.
And with any ventilation of working of that depth, you would have to have a downdraft shaft, and then you would put your ventilation fans on your updraft shaft, which meant you'd have constant velocity air being drawn into your workings down the main shaft, and then your tertiary shaft would be exhausting all your filtered dust, etc., which represents a great threat to those working with hard rock. So, looking at that, I then looked at the headgear and the winding house, and I noticed on the top was stenciled cementation mining. Now, cementation mining, the agents for NIREX, who are the agents for Sellafield nuclear waste.
And Sellafield nuclear waste, they receive large amounts of taxpayers' money.
Of course, hundreds of millions to store safely.
And yet, we've got people connected with both organisations.
Yes, yeah, because when I check the directors, they link into NIREX and they link into Magnox. So, as I said, there was a cross-link between common directors, not just in linking them to Vancouver in Canada, a gentleman called John Francis Kearney, and another one, Dinesh Kumar Varma. And that's where I started to look at the individual directors and their career histories and their acquisitions. And they bought a mine in Canada called the Prairie Creek Mine, which operated for 10 years. It was actually the Canadian Zinc Corporation, and they were previously a pizza delivery company. I say, good mining experience. Pizza.
Transfer of skills there.
Obviously, I would have said so. Oh, I've tasted a few of those pizzas, and I can probably say, yeah, I wouldn't have one of them again.
So are there any politicians involved in any of this?
Oh, Canadian politicians, even prime ministers.
Well, we're a global world.
Yeah.
This is
if
why...
you shake hands properly, business is business.
So, of course, the crime is expanding because we're a global community.
We are a global community, and the problem arises with political corruption, where individuals are corrupted. I can attest to that with the documents I've got, where even the president of South Africa was going to be given $400 or $800 million for allowing or facilitating the production of 20-odd nuclear power stations with faulty equipment. Yeah, that's confirmed.
When was that going to be happening?
That was, it was uncovered by a good friend of mine who is an anti-money laundering expert. His name is Mark Eischinger, and I had contacted him 6 years ago with information that helped and assisted him in getting rid of Europe's fourth most powerful woman, Miss Anne Laveron. Strangely, she was working for Rio Tinto out of 6 St. James's Place, St. James's Square, where Mr. Peter Hain was hanging his coat.
Right. So he's a wealthy Labour peer, isn't he?
Well, he would be in the mining industry because they don't do any mining, but there's a lot of money going around.
So what's your estimate of the number of politicians currently serving in both the Lords and the Commons that are associated with the City of London and Finchley Road?
Corruption.
And corruption.
Oh, well, I think I've got about 40 Lords.
40 Lords, and how many currently serving MPs?
A lot.
Yeah. Yes. People at home, you'd be quite surprised. You'd be thinking, these are really nice people, but we know different, and we are about to expose them all, one by one.
if you look at our friend, war criminal Tony Blair, you will find recently he dissolved his Windrush and Firerush companies, which were they were 11.
Windrush.
That's a strange name, isn't it? Ask Amber Augusta Rudd about it.
Oh, she's got enough problems of her own, hasn't she?
Well, she would have with Monticello.
Do you really think she actually resigned because of Windrush, or was it because of something else?
Something else.
I think so too.
I think I put my mockers on her with her involvement with Monticello PLC. Monticello PLC and many other companies, a couple of 47 that I traced belonging to her, came out of 788 790 Finchley Road. So she's not a happy bunny.
It's funny though with Amber Rudd, isn't it? Because she went to the Bilderberg meeting early on in the year.
Didn't she? Yes.
So for somebody who's a disgraced MP, she seems to be doing awfully well.
Well, if you studied her biography like I did when I found out she was linked to 788 790 Finchley Road, what I found out that she had a past history as a banker, in Canadian TSX V stock exchange companies, mining companies in the zinc industry.
What's a lowly MP?
Nice. Oh.
I mean, they don't receive that much of an income, do they? So how did she manage to accumulate?
She managed to run two companies on the Toronto Stock Exchange, mining and zinc and diamond mining. There's a nice thing, diamonds. I love diamonds. Never found any mine, but
most
cash
like
burned
diamonds,
a lot of
actually.
money, a couple $100 million, then dissolved and started others like Monticello PLC and other mining companies. And that's what I said. This is nothing to do with mining, oil, gas. It's about stealing money. Vast amount of money.
And when you consider that Facebook is awash with videos now of people looking after homeless people, and you can't go through any major city without coming across people begging for money, for food, and they just want shelter. You know, a friend of mine was saying that his friend found herself pregnant, had been paying her national insurance all her life, and now she finds herself pregnant and she needs accommodation and she can't get any. They've offered her a tent.
Yeah.
Well, how does this work in this country? I mean, doesn't it make people angry?
You yourself, with this recording, you can explain to the general public that myself as an ex-serviceman, a commended service, 12 years Royal Air Force, that I looked at great disgrace. I came out on Christmas Day, Christmas Day 2000. I'm going to get this wrong in a minute. Just before the Falklands War.
Right.
All right. So when I came out Christmas Day. I would have signed for 22 years. They wanted me to sign, but it would have meant my children going into boarding school. I would have seen them twice in a year, 1 week at a time. So when I came out, I found out that in the March, April, there was a lead up to the Falklands War. And the car that I owned came back from Cyprus when I was stationed at 103 MU. It came back on the Sir Galahad, and that was one of the ships that was bombed. Where the Welsh regiment was on board, and horrific injuries, and deaths. And then I found out that Rex Hunt, the governor of the Falklands, managed to be an executive director of some of the mining companies in the Falklands, where investors, ex-veterans of the Falklands, lost everything in the companies. One company was a company called Desire Petroleum, and Desire Petroleum had a certain Labour lord, a Labour MP, Colin Barry Phipps, now deceased. But the Phipps family were all executive directors of Desire Petroleum, Falkland Oil and Gas, Argus Exploration, Rockhopper Resources. Those companies, 5 of them, have cash burned £1.5 billion and not found a thimbleful of oil. Now, isn't that a disgrace? You know, you'd think that somebody would be red flagging these executive directors who never find anything, who run company after company, never finding anything, just like Anglesey Mining. And Anglesey Mining has run for 34 years and never turned an ingot, a 1 ounce ingot of anything. 34 years. That's nice work if you can get it.
Well, Gordon, thank you so much for explaining this.
It's a pleasure.
I don't know if you're aware, but over in America they do something called a Q drop, where they release a certain amount of information. Perhaps across the Atlantic over here, we should now start doing the C and G drops.
Well, I think so too. I think that if we want to clean up politics and bring out a different direction for politicians to act with trust, honour, integrity and accountability.
Absolutely.
Peter Hain, I will see you in court or in jail. One of the two. And the rest.
And the rest.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gordon.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure,
to meet
Carol.
you in flesh.
There you go.
And thank you for listening. Goodbye.